Hello everyone and welcome back to day number 2 of the World Cyber Arena North American Hearthstone Pro Qualifier. Once again, I am TJ Sanders, joined by Kevin Monk Dong. What have you thought about these games so far? They've been pretty good.
Yeah, I think the skill in this group is very high.
Oh yeah.
I would say all the players have been playing really well, and I especially like the fact that the winners of, or at least a lot of the players in this group have been bringing interesting tech choices that have either gone really well or somewhat poorly. Impact, his Flare obviously went really well. His Kazam Mystic, probably not the best. His Shadow Step Leroy combo kind of petered out a bit. But Tarei, with all his decisions to bring 2 Unstable Ghouls in Warrior, to bring 2 Kona Colds in Freeze Mage, have been working out for him. And I really like it when players, they change 1 or 2 cards, and those cards end up winning the games for them, or at least help them to achieve their goals.
Yeah, the meta reads are a pretty big deal. Usually the player that can predict the meta correctly, especially in a smaller sample size when it comes to like 4-player groups like this, can be a pretty big deal. But of course you could see that group on your screen there. Firebat and Tarei, the 2 players that we're going to see next in this finals. Of course, a lot on the line for these players. The winner of this match gets flown out to the World Cyber Arena Qualifier Finals, the Pro Qualifier Finals, which is going to be a LAN. It's happening in California at the beginning of June. And then the top 2 players from that LAN actually get flown out to China at the end of the year to compete for a $250,000 Hearthstone prize pool, over $120,000 for the first place winner.
You know, I think it's very fitting that these 2 players are the players that are left at the end of the group, because both these players, they represented America at BlizzCon last year. I believe it was Tarei, Firebat, D2, and who was that last guy? I don't know, but yeah, at least those players.
Think of it.
Yeah, we'll think of it.
It'll come to me in about 10 minutes. My subconscious has got it going on.
We'll figure it out in the middle of the broadcast, and I'll just scream out a name, and you'll know what it is.
I hope you actually.
Strife Crow. How could I forget Strife Crow?
Oh yeah, Strife Crow. Yeah. How can anybody forget Strife Crow? No. But we are moments away from jumping in. We'll take a look at these, the deck choices for these guys. We've seen both of these players play so far today, so we're very familiar with these decks. Mage, Druid, and Warrior for Tarei, and then for, of course, Firebat, it is Hunter, Mage, and Rogue.
Yes, this Warrior is going to do so much work against the lineup of Firebat.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But you know what? Firebat at Gfinity, the first Gfinity earlier this year, actually last month, he brought the same exact lineup, Freeze Mage, Oil Rogue, and Face Hunter. And what he told me was like, I actually don't mind facing Warrior, because Warrior is going to like win 90% of the time against all my decks anyway. So it might as well be a 3 versus 2, my 3 decks versus my opponent's 2. But at that point, I think my 3 decks are so good that they'll be favored over the rest of my opponent's decks. So I have a really good chance at winning anyway. So this game, it's honestly, to be honest, kind of a throwaway, especially because there are 2 Unstable Ghouls teched into Tarei's deck. But after that, I feel like that's when the real match begins. It's
super anti-aggro, anti-hunter. But you talked about it a little bit. You can only win with the Warrior once, which makes it so that when you throw it out first because you know that it has a high percentage chance to win. You get that win out of the way. But if he could play the Warrior more than one time in this matchup, I'm sure he would, just because Face Hunter, Freeze Mage, and Oil Rogue are probably the 3 strongest matchups for Control Warrior currently.
Yeah, almost certainly. Is there anything even better? Like,
I don't really think so.
Those are the 3.
The 3,
yeah, exactly.
When you see those 3 decks on the ladder, like you look at your last 10 matches, you're like, oh, 3 Face Hunter, 4 Oil Rogues, and 3 Freeze Mages. Queuing up the Control Warrior.
Yeah, and then you easily get ranked number 1 legend, right?
Ranked number 1 legend, yeah.
It makes you wonder, TJ, why aren't you number 1 legend right now? You're such a Control Warrior buff, right?
That's a good point.
That's kind of a loaded question.
Because whenever I play the ladder, my opponent top decks me every single game.
Obviously.
Obviously.
What happens. Yeah.
That's what happens to everybody.
We were talking a lot about the Unstable Ghouls. We forgot to even mention this anti-kill bot.
Yeah. The anti-kill bot is just sort of the nail in the coffin for the Face Hunter. You get through those Unstable Ghouls, you 2-for-1 trade all day for the Warrior's creatures to get through those taunts and the armor smiths, and then all of a sudden anti-kill bot comes out and just completely ruins your day. Now this start for Tarei is actually not that good. he doesn't really have many plays until turn 5. He's going to have to take a lot of face damage by clearing with his weapons early on.
Oh, well, never mind. Acolyte of Pain will be pretty good. Unfortunately, Firebat will get at least 6 damage with this Wolf Fighter that will almost certainly be coming down.
Yeah, at least 6 damage. And in between, he's going to be able to, next turn, like weave in the Hero Power and probably throw down the Knife Juggler as well.
Okay, this is fair. Just getting that Wolf Fighter out of the way.
Yeah.
Using the Shield Slam as a Drain Life.
Very true. Good point. Didn't even think of it like that. You know, there's some people that don't even know what Drain Life is.
Yeah, especially players who are just getting into the game and they just kind of watch some competitive start Hearthstone.
Or players that don't play Arena very often.
Well, this is awkward.
Yeah.
I guess you do trade first, I guess.
Ooh, yeah. I think you definitely trade first because it would deny a card draw potentially. And, I mean, unless he's planning just to go face with it and ignore it anyway. Okay.
That's interesting.
Well, he gets, I guess,
well, he
lucky
got lucky,
in that situation.
But, okay, so I guess he plays this card, so he has to take some risks.
I mean, we're trying to use like intricate strategies to try and guess which plays this face hunter is going to go for, but denying the draw, I guess he really just doesn't care. He just wants to go face. Why throw that 3 damage into the Acolyte of Pain when I could just put that 3 damage into face?
Yeah. So, yeah, Firebat was kind of taking somewhat of a risk, hoping that Tarei wouldn't have removal, which is very likely because Tarei's been hard-pressed to throw any removal down the last few turns.
Anti-Keelbot?
This is actually going to be kind of sad because it's very likely at this point, because Tarei can't clear the board, that Firebat will just win, even though Tarei teched in 2 anti-Keelbots and 2 unstable ghouls in his deck.
Wow. I mean, he's still got a lot of health to get through because he's got to get through the 8 health that this anti-Keelbot healed, 8 more health from the second anti-Keelbot, 5 more health from the Shield Maiden. And just from his hand alone, that's 21 effective health. That doesn't even include the amount of health that he's going to get from just straight up armoring up. But again, probably still going to win just because of the sheer amount of damage that he had in his hand.
Oh, look at Firebat's face. He's like, oh, you run that card.
Cool. Yeah, Firebat's has been pretty fed up with the anti-Hunter. Pretty much the anti-Firebat lineup text that we've seen so far.
Yeah, this is going to be slightly unfortunate for Firebat. Kind of drawing... These are the 3 cards you don't want to draw at this point because you can't really activate the kill command. And if you don't use the kill command here, you won't be able to activate one of your quick shots at least.
Yeah, so he's going to be able to gain 7 health next turn and take 3 off the board. So Firebat is going to have, what, 5 damage, 8 damage total next turn? So he's actually going to be 1 off. Being able to kill him, unless he draws into a couple points of direct damage, which is entirely possible.
Let's see the Shield Maiden.
I can take the hit.
I love Firebat's reactions.
Yeah, and he actually, since he draws into the Shield Slam, he's able to clear everything off the board, so he's going to have to play from hand. Glaivezuka is probably not as much direct damage as he's want, but at least he's going to be able to get the secondary effect from Quick Shot.
Well, actually, that's just game.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's lethal.
Well, so despite 2 anti-Keelbots and a Shield Maiden in this deck, Firebat's still going to take it.
He did 56 points of damage. So 30 health.
Not including the armor up.
Well,
right?
that is including the armor up.
Okay.
So he armored up, I believe, 3 turns, 3 out of his 8 turns. He armored up 3 out of his 8 turns, plus 30 health. So that's 36 health right there, plus the 16, plus 5, so that's 21. So actually, even more than that, what, 57?
Yeah, well,
57 total
just
health.
a lot of damage, and it all came down to, even though Tarei teched in 2 unstable ghouls, he wasn't drawing into any of those. He wasn't drawing into Cruel Taskmasters, and he wasn't drawing into Armor Smiths, which are the cards you need to deal 1 damage with against your opponent's minions. He drew into 1 Fire War Axe, but unfortunately that wasn't enough. He really needed a second weapon there.
Yeah, and you can see his opening hand, he was filled with a 5-drop, a 6-drop, and a 7-drop, which, and when every turn you're just taking so much damage, I mean, he took like 5 damage per turn, even when he was clearing something off the board. So it's just so hard to come back from that. If it just gives the face hunter so many opportunities to find wins, even when they have to get through 57 points of health in 8 turns. That's pretty ridiculous.
That's what Face Hunter can do. The power of Face Hunter, as we learned. But unfortunately for Tarei, he didn't get a win there. But I'm sure with his Control Warrior, he'll be able to get a win sometime during the series.
Yeah.
How funny would it be if Tarei just lost against Face Hunter, Rogue, and Freeze Mage with a Control Warrior that's pretty much teched against those decks?
Yeah. Well, maybe not necessarily against Freeze Mage. Well, actually, yeah, because the heal.
Heals, yeah. Still, the heal is so amazing, right?
Yeah, that's...
The unstable ghouls, not so much, but yeah, with 2 anti-heal bots, you're even more favored in that matchup.
Yeah, definitely pretty absurd. And a lot of people will say, oh, Face Hunter, you just go Face. But Face Hunter, it's healthy for the game because it keeps other decks in check. Because without Face Hunter, decks would just get so slow and so greedy.
So what you're saying is Face Hunter is both cancer and healthy.
Yeah,
Are you pro cancer?
And anti-cancer at the same time. How does that even work? It's causing cancer and preemptively curing a different kind of cancer at the same time.
I feel like this is like something we'd hear about in House.
Yeah.
Kind of a riddle.
It's lupus.
It's always lupus. Alright, so just going through the motions, already a key card in Tarei's hand will be Harrison Jones. And not only that, but Acolyte of Pain is dropped down, and there's actually no good answer from Firebat. An Unstable Ghoul will be able to come out after that. And he might just, Vise Teacher into Backstab. So this is probably not the ideal play, but it is a play that gives Firebat initiative, and you value initiative more than anything in this matchup. You value getting minions on the board because that is the only way you win. Using your minions to hit your opponent's face over and over again. The Oil Rogue just doesn't have enough burst damage to burst your opponent out of the game, so you have to just rely on tricks like this.
Yeah, the tempo is a big thing. And there's also certain things that he's playing around. He's protecting his Violet Teacher because there's things like he could cool Taskmaster next turn plus Fire War Axe to be able to draw 2 cards from the Acolyte, which he would draw anyway, and be able to clear off the Violet Teacher. So if you think about it, by leaving the Acolyte of Pain up for another turn, it's likely that he's going to get a second draw out of it anyway. This way, you're the one who's sort of dictating the pace of the game.
Yeah, throwing away a Backstab here because he really values the health on the Violet Teacher. Just even though it still dies to Death Spite, Firebat can make the call that, okay, my opponent probably doesn't have Death Spite, or he probably would have used it in the previous turn.
Yeah.
And he can't really play around Fire War Axe plus Cruel Taskmaster, to be honest. That's something that your opponent has to have both those cards exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, Execute. That's a good one.
You know what? I agree with you. That is a good one.
Now, if Tarei has choices and more choices.
Well,
I wonder what Tarei cut from this deck. Maybe the Sludge Belchers?
it's possible.
Yeah,
that the anti-kill bots are in place of Sludge Belchers?
Yeah, it's very possible. I don't believe we've seen Sludge Belchers yet, right?
Not that I can remember. I mean, he also could cut some of the later game legendaries, like of course like Baron Geddon.
Yeah,
Rag.
Baron Geddon's actually not seen much lately. It's pretty much only good against Zoo in the current meta.
And sometimes it isn't even that good against Zoo.
Yeah, because all the Zoo minions are so resilient to AoE anyway.
And a lot of times on turn 7, if all you're doing is playing a big threat like that that also damages yourself, unless you're clearing off pretty much the entire board, it's too slow to play. Then again, he also has Ysera.
Oh, that hurts. So, yeah, Firebat values the minions so much that he actually uses his 3-point dagger to clear a 2-1 Cruel Taskmaster.
Yep.
A little unfortunate here.
Yeah, no preps to be able to leverage for that sprint. So when you're spending an entire turn just daggering up, especially when you have a Violet Teacher on the board, I mean, is that a tell to Tarei saying, hey, his hand is terrible, most likely clogged with sprints or heavier creatures like Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
Does that make you play any
certainly.
different?
Maybe like, I mean, if, okay, there's a Sludge Belcher. Okay. So the thing is, if it's your opponent's hand is clogged with sprints, that means, okay, I can just play more freely on this turn. But I don't think the play would have changed any other way.
Yeah.
Still, nothing looks good here except sprint.
Yeah. See if you can draw into a prep here.
Oh,
there it is. I don't think he can really do anything with this prep besides Eviscerate. So he's actually just going to save for next turn.
And you might as well. Oh, 2 Brawls? What the heck?
2 Brawls. Probably 1 Sludge Belcher, I'm guessing. There's also, most Control Warrior lists now include like a Piloted Shredder or 2.
Yeah, so I guess he isn't playing the Piloted Shredder. You know what? He probably isn't playing a BGH. It's almost
possible,
certainly a
yeah.
cut. So if you cut BGH and you cut Ragnaros and you cut Baron Geddon, I feel like those are the 3 cuts. But to cut those 3 cards, he added in a Ysera.
Busted!
Is that Magic Amy?
I'll just leave that one hanging for a second.
But yeah, I was saying, like, you have to cut Ysera. You have to cut, what was I saying? That you just made me lose my train of thought there.
Tarei looks
like,
really sad
oh
right
no,
now.
I've been busted. Magic Amy was helping me the entire time.
Oh man. I don't even know where we're at in this game anymore. Anti-kill bot.
Healing back up.
Well, what we were talking about was what he was possibly cutting from this warrior deck to fit in double Brawl, double Unstable Ghoul,
double
anti-kill bot, plus Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, I actually really want to see that list, and unfortunately for this anti-kill bot, it's going to get completely negated.
Yeah. And I mean, he's going to put him at 7 health here with Despite in his hand and an Alexstrasza on board. There's a full hand here for Firebat, and he just doesn't really have a way to deal with all this.
Firebat looks really frustrated, but
yeah.
to be honest, if I were him, I'd be like, I would just take this loss and be like, okay, Warrior was going to kill one of these decks anyway.
Yeah.
I don't really mind. It's still going to be 2-2 after this, and Firebat's lineup is very conducive to getting random wins with Face Hunter, Freeze Mage, and Oil Rogue.
Yeah. He has to use a Tinker's Oil here, plus the Blood Mage Thalnos. Ooh. And that's not even going to clear it all off. He can do this and still be able to clear off the Alexstrasza with the Eviscerate.
Yep, there we go. And even healing up some more health. So, almost certainly we're going to be seeing the Death Spite here.
Still hasn't found enough damage to finish out the game, though. But, I mean...
But yeah, just playing it slow and steady, I think that'd still be fine. If it weren't for this Harrison Jones, actually, Tarei's hand would actually be pretty bad. I mean, double Brawl, probably not what you're going to use against Rogue, especially after 2 Violet Teachers have been played. But it's going to be this Harrison Jones that's going to keep Firebat in this game. In the long run, but to be honest, I don't think he's thinking about the long run right now, because there's no way for Firebat to deal with this board effectively, and that's going to mean it's almost certainly going to be close to lethal in the next 2 turns.
Yep. Not the greatest Emperor Thorsan value, but I mean, even if you're just reducing the cost of 3 cards, that's basically stronger than an Innervate. Because you're gaining a total of 3 mana, or potential for 3 mana.
Well, there's going to be at least 2 cards drawn here.
Oh, yeah. This is nice and clean. Sylvanas.
Okay, so Sylvanas was one of the cuts.
We saw Sylvanas earlier, actually.
Okay.
In the last match, actually. It was in his opening hand against the Face Hunter. So. It's just really tough. I know I'm forgetting something that's in this deck.
I really want to see this deck list. I want to ask for it afterwards.
Yeah. Always when you see new cards in a deck list, you're always like, how does he fit all these cards in there? It's like, it feels like the deck legitimately has 35 cards. But there's always a couple cards that you really don't think about when you're looking at new deck lists that are usually included. He needed to draw that card, but now he can't really leverage the Tinker Sharpshooter roll because he doesn't want to get anything stolen.
And unfortunately, that's actually not going to be game yet.
Yeah, it's going to take him a little bit.
That's kind of funny.
But he's got quite a few outs here. He's got Grom Hellscream.
Oh, Fire War Axe. Well,
Yep.
does he have Grom Hellscream? We haven't seen that card
Oh,
yet.
yeah, that's very true.
I don't think that's a card you cut, though. Who
It's
knows?
possible.
Who knows?
I actually talked to a couple players about the possibility of cutting those burst combinations out of Control Warrior and making the Control Warrior play a lot more like Priest, where you just really have a lot of reactive cards you control early, and then you just slowly inch out the game later on. But I mean, the staple of Control Warrior, even if you go so far back as to like the combo, the old Giants charge.
Oh, the good old days.
Warriors, where the
good old
one-turn
days
kills.
where you could just throw down big red giants, 8/8 giants, slam into your opponent's face, throw some alcohol at them, and then just kill your opponent.
Exactly. Or like the Alexstrasza into Gorehowl for exactly 15 damage.
Alexstrasza plus charge.
Charge. The old charge plus Gorehowl.
The good old days.
The good old days where there was a lot more really broken things. But of course, this matchup is tied between Tarei and Firebat. So we are going to move to game number 3, which is going to be Tarei's Mage versus the Rogue once again from Firebat.
Now, we talked about 2 Kona Colds in Tarei's deck, which really helped against the Zoo matchup, but I feel like this is a matchup where the Kona Colds will probably hurt more than they help. Probably Blizzard would be more valuable than Kona Colds, unless he's able to use the Kona Colds in combination with a Doomsayer and actually pull that combo off.
Yeah. But we'll have to see. This matchup, generally, I think it's pretty close, but I'd say it favors the Freeze Mage more so.
Yeah, I would happen to agree with you.
Maybe like 60-40. I've seen a lot of people say it's a lot more lopsided than that, but I've seen Rogues just completely burst out Mages, and I think it's a lot more likely for the Freeze Mage to draw poorly because of how many heavy hitting cards they have in their hand than it is for the Rogue. Like a lot of their cards are 6 cost plus. And if they don't get like card draw earlier on, if they can't like block a lot of the burst damage that a Rogues can put out earlier on, then sometimes they can just get bursted down, get their block popped a lot earlier. And if a Freeze Mage is forced to play defensive for the large majority of the game, a lot of times they won't find time to be able to piece together damage to win the game.
Yeah, I'm always really interested at Firebat's mulligan decisions. They kind of sometimes they go against what's generally accepted. For example, this game, he kept Oil and Blood Mage Thanos. I can kind of understand the Oil because you want to get that damage in early on. But Blood Mage Thanos is actually just played as a 2-drop, and I'm thinking maybe Firebat just wants to cycle his deck, and he kind of thinks that, okay, Blood Mage Thanos, it's probably not going to deal that much work early on in the game, or later in the game. I'm probably not going to use the spell power that much, so might as well cycle it.
He usually keeps Oil when he plays the Oil Rogue.
In the control matchups, right?
In control matchups, yeah. Because it's like the card that... the single card that does the most damage.
It's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because Oil is kind of like it costs so much and it's so hard to combo.
Yeah. But that's one of the keys to winning is to make early on in the game, maybe not early on, but in the mid game, to make big Oil plays. If you're the Rogue,
I think a lot of these mulligan decisions could be influenced by Firebat's teammate Purple Drank. I've heard Zele and Firebat talking about Purple Dragon, why he's such a good coach for the team. It's one of the reasons is it helps him build decks, but also he really makes strange mulligan decisions, and he helps players reconsider their just initial impressions of what to mulligan and what not to mulligan. He has a very interesting way of thinking, and we'll certainly see more of his play as he will be in Group D later today, or later this week. Yeah,
the concept of a coach is an interesting thing in Hearthstone, which we talked about a little bit earlier today before the broadcast, and it's really interesting. If you look at coaches in like traditional sports or even other esports, the coach is there to serve a role to make sure that the players only have to focus on playing and not about the more macro things like what choices to put in your deck or like what mulligan choices to make. You just have to focus on the actual gameplay.
Yeah.
And always having that second opinion Firebat always said, I mean, even if you go back to a lot of his victories last year, even with the BlizzCon World Championships, he always credits other people with his victories.
Yeah.
Because he gets so much help from outside just his own opinions with deck building. And Purple Drank is one of the people, even before they both joined Team Archon, that was always on the top of that list of players that helped.
Yeah, one of Firebat's biggest strengths is not even in his deck building or in his play, in his technical play, but rather like he's very humble in the sense that he will accept help from anyone if he thinks like they have stuff to offer. And like back in the day, even he hosted tournaments very often just to see like test lineups and just constant practice is what makes him the world champion.
And because of that, people are very willing to help him.
Yep. Especially willing to help the world champion, right?
Exactly.
Who can say, hey,
get a piece of that pie?
Yeah, I helped the world champion.
Yeah, they're hoping, hey, maybe he'll give me some money because of that. Maybe he'll give me a piece of that money that he won from the World Championship. But taking stock of this game, Emperor Thorsan came down, and lots of value going on in the hand of Tarei. Not only did he reduce the cost of Archmage Antonidas, but he also made his Frostbolt and his Ice Lance cost less, so he's going to be able to make some big turns later. It's possible that he could get 4 spells out in a single turn with Archmage Antonidas.
Oh, wow. This was interesting. So the very obvious play here was just to eviscerate the Emperor Thorsan. But with this line of play, what it basically says is it uses the backstab instead of the eviscerate because the eviscerate can do more damage to face at this point.
Yeah.
And he wants to get his opponent all the way down to 1.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about earlier. The sooner you can force the mage into a defensive position as the rogue, the better off of position you'll be in. Because now, every single turn, Tarei has to be worrying about dying or getting his block popped. So not only does he have to make a defensive play every single turn, he also has to find a way to make an offensive play to try and piece together a victory. Because he's on a clock now.
Yeah, Tarei has he has a really good turn though here, even though he's at 1 HP. By freezing the board, freezing the face, putting up an ice block, and throwing down the Doomsayer, that's pretty much the best way to lock out your opponent from pretty much every single play possible.
Emperor Thorsan, and whoa! Sprint right off the top, and that's going to give Firebat...
It's going to give Firebat
a lot of tools.
Loatheb especially.
Yeah, Loatheb, really big deal. And he's going to be able to protect his board by sapping out this Doomsayer. This is a really great spot for Firebat. I don't see many ways out of this for Tarei. He's going to have to go up against a Loatheb plus an anti-Killbot. So any pieces of damage he's going to be able to piece together here, in combination with having to play defensively every turn, super rough.
Yeah. Last turn, pretty much, Tarei used all his resources, all his low-costed spells with that he got from Emperor Thorsan in order to stall out the game. And right now, he doesn't have as many good options. You do have a 5-mana Blizzard, so pretty much Blizzard from 2013. But to combine that with Doomsayer, it's still 7 mana, and then you would have to freeze your opponent's face again in order to somewhat guarantee that your opponent can't pop the block. But at this point, you might as well suspect that your opponent not only has, he probably has some damage from hand as well, an Eviscerate, or perhaps a Blade Flurry.
Yeah.
So he goes out with the stalling play.
Yeah, this is his best chance of survival, preserving his block for as long as he can. We know that the block is going to be popped anyway because he does have SI Agent, which is direct damage, which he can use. And Loatheb plus SI Agent and then a Sap on the Doomsayer pretty much is going to secure the game here for Firebat. I just don't see a way that Tarei is going to be able to stall for much longer unless he draws exactly Ice Block next turn. But even then, it's just going to buy him a single turn. He won't be able to deal with the board. His block is going to be popped the following turn regardless.
Fireball's not enough. If he actually top deck Frostbolt, it would have been enough to possibly get him Ice Block from Mad Scientist. He's just gonna draw now, see what he could have drawn into the following turns, and fortunately was not enough. Firebat goes up 2-1 with, I believe, just his Freeze Mage remaining.
Just the Freeze Mage remaining, indeed. So he's one game away from joining Amaz as the second player who we'll be seeing at the qualifier land finals in the beginning of June. So that would already be a pretty star-studded lineup, and Team Archon would probably be pretty happy with that result overall. But Tarei, I mean, Freeze Mage, we've seen Firebat struggle a little bit in that first series, trying to get a win with the Freeze Mage. He got a little bit of help from the RNGs to do that. But what decks does Tarei have remaining?
Tarei has Freeze Mage and Druid remaining. So Druid typically a favorable matchup, but we're actually going to see Freeze Mage versus Freeze Mage next, and that's actually going to be a really interesting one because actually half of your cards, or maybe like a third of your cards, don't do anything in this matchup.
Yeah.
Like Flame Strike, Blizzard, Cone of Cold, Doomsayer, Frost Nova.
It's more than half your deck, I think, is useless in this matchup. And a lot of times you'll see ridiculous things like Flame Strike to clear off a Loot Hoarder.
Yeah.
Or Flame Strike to clear off a Mad Scientist, just because sometimes you have to throw away cards.
Yeah.
Because your hand gets full, you're waiting on the burst.
In this matchup, it might be funny that Cone of Cold might actually be worse than Blizzard in some sense, because you can Blizzard an empty board, but you can't Cone of Cold an empty board.
That's a fantastic point. He might be stuck with a hand that he just can't use anything, because you have to have something to Cone of Cold, like you said. But this matchup is actually really interesting. There's so many weird dynamics that happen just because of the interactions between Freeze Mage win condition being burst and Ice Block being really strong against classes that burst. A lot of times you'll see the first player to go offensive can sometimes be caught in a position where they pop the block too early at too high a health, and then they're never able to get their opponent low enough.
Yeah. Both these players have absolutely amazing hands to start off with, but I kind of like Firebat slightly better simply because he has the Emperor in his opening hand.
Yeah, and a lot of times the first player to play Emperor, the player to get the most value out of Emperor, has a really big advantage.
Yeah.
Also, the first player to draw Alexstrasza also has a pretty huge advantage.
Now, you would think in the previous turn, Firebat might have wanted to coin out the Acolyte of Pain in order to contest the Loot Hoarder, but he's definitely saving that coin for turn 5 Emperor. The sooner you can get it out, the more amazing it'll be. Also, if you do a turn 5 Emperor, it's very likely that your opponent might not have anything to deal with the Emperor unless he has a Fireball.
Yeah, and unless you can get... And if you get 2 turns of Emperor Thaurissan value on the board, and that's just so strong, especially since he's going to be drawing so many cards from this Acolyte of Pain.
It's kind of funny, again, Cone of Cold being kind of dead in this matchup because you don't want to Cone of Cold this Acolyte of Pain, do you?
Yeah. I mean, there is a risk in this matchup of overdrawing. And sometimes, especially if you play Acolyte of Pain later in the game when you have fuller hands, especially in the Freeze Mage Mirror, a lot of times you can be susceptible to being milled out of cards, which is really dangerous in this matchup because if you mill something important, like one of your pieces of burn, or a card like Alexstrasza or Emperor Thaurissan, a lot of times that could be the end of the match right there. So you have to really be wary of your card count in this matchup.
Now this is actually a turn where, like we mentioned, it could just be a throwaway turn where you just Cone of Cold the Doomsayer just to throw away that card away. If he doesn't draw anything here, like, okay, Ice Lance is useless, so I think we're probably going to be seeing that Cone of Cold.
Yeah, he has to, because he doesn't really... No other card makes much sense to be played here. And he was at 10 cards, so he had to throw away something or risk being, again, milled a all-important card next turn. Well, this might... Okay, Ice Barrier is the secret. Now, thank you, Spectator.
Yeah, it's the power of Spectator mode. Firebat, he was considering... He had planned to Emperor Thaurissan the previous turn, but I think he's considering just the Acolyte plus Ping in order to get even more value from the Emperor.
Yeah, also, yeah, being able to save that coin for Archmage Antonidas.
Yes, it's also a very good point.
You're basically turning the coin into a fireball and opening up opportunities to get even more fireballs because you're opening up another mana to be able to use more spells. Oh, this is huge. Look how much... He's got so much burn in his hand already from it, plus the Alexstrasza. So Alexstrasza can come out a turn earlier.
Yeah. The key actually is those Ice Lances. Reducing Ice Lances down to 0 is so amazing. Usually with Archmage Antonidas, but even just now with from the lone Ice Lances, how much damage does actually Tarei have in one turn? He has a possibility of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He has 21 damage on turn 10 with the Pyroblast. Pyroblast, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Ice Lance.
Yep. Looks like he is just going to throw out the Blood Mage Thanos here for some draw. And he hesitated slightly, probably just counting his cards, making sure that once he draws this card from the Blood Mage that he's not going to overdraw the following turn.
So, Firebat's decision not to play the Emperor on turn 5, where he could have coined it out, might be hurting him now, because he played. Now the Emperor is on the board, but he gets it much later than he would have liked.
Yeah.
Alexstrasza, because of that, because of the more defensive play that Firebat did by Acolyte and then pinging on turn 5, it allowed Tarei to actually get the Emperor, in which after that, Firebat was forced to go on the defensive and just try to clear that. So this basically allowed Tarei to play the Alexstrasza, which Firebat is going to have somewhat of a hard time dealing with.
Yeah, he does have an Ice Barrier up, so that'll basically be able to absorb at least one hit from Alexstrasza to face. But he also wants to be able to protect this Emperor Thorsane, because this could be the key. And he's actually deciding here whether or not he wants to attack to try and check for that Ice Barrier, because he doesn't really want to allow Tarei to gain health at this point in the game.
You know what? Actually, this game might just be over. Simply because Tarei will be able to pop the first Ice Block. Back in like the old Freeze Mage days, when like everything was unnerfed, like Blizzard was 5, Frost Nova was 2. It was all about who could pop the first Ice Block. And even though Firebat has the combination of Archmage Antonius plus Emperor Thorazane on the board, it's just not going to be enough.
Yeah, and the big thing here is that he's able to get him to 1, which I talked about this earlier. So a lot of times this can actually be really hard to be able to pop the block in the mirror matchup of Freeze Mage while getting your opponent to 1. So there's not many things that are going to be an out for Firebat here, because even Lotheb, you'd have to have the second block here, and you would have to have like Lotheb.
Well, one mana Archmage Antonius would help here. Alexstrasza! Alexstrasza! That's the perfect card.
Yeah, exactly, because again, like I said, Burst is so hard to piece together. Like, he's got so many fireballs.
It's almost irrelevant at that point.
And he's used so much burn already. He doesn't have Archmage Antonius to refill his hand. He's actually going to trade both.
He's going to trade both these in. Actually,
he realized that he missed 5 damage because Doomsayer's on the board anyway.
Kind of, yeah, Firebat's kind of hitting himself, and that actually might make a huge difference.
Yeah, oh, we actually see Malagos in Tarei's list here, and Pyroblast?
That's amazing. Malagos is actually amazing in the mirror matchup because it can help burst your opponent down, but unfortunately, no spells that are able to be used here.
Yeah.
And again, Firebat, this
he would have to pop. Well, this is crazy.
Yeah, this is like the same scenario all over again. Firebats just always have to play on the defensive.
Yeah, you can see Firebat, I think, is still upset about himself for that misplay last turn. We'll see if that 5 damage is going to matter, because Doomsayer was on the board. Everything was going to die anyway. So trading in with the Emperor Thorsand there.
It's kind of like that the jab misplay over the weekend, right?
Yeah, where he just threw away the quick shot by accident. And that's, well, again, 5 damage. We'll see if 5 damage is going to be the difference here for Firebat. But Tarei still has to piece together burst.
Yeah, 5 damage is actually somewhat going to matter, because now Firebat he'll still be able to pop, but
he would have been able to put him to 1 here. If he had gotten that 5 damage in, he would be at 1 health, and then he would be able to just ping off for the extra damage. Now he's going to have to leave him at 6 when he pops the block, which could be a little bit of a liability.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, he does have a lot of burst in his hand. He does have 6 damage, but there's a second ice block.
Yeah, like I said, popping the first ice block is just like the most important thing in this matchup. And I was saying that, okay, Tarei was probably going to be able to pop the first ice block, but that was before Firebat drew the Alexstrasza, and that just turned the matchup completely around.
Yeah. Wow. He's going to use Pyroblast to pop the block just so he has like damage that he can spread out across the turns. That's the second block popped, and I don't think Tarei has any way to keep himself in this game.
Because I missed it. Come on. No.
Fireball is not going to do it. I think that might be it.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think Firebat is going to take the series 3-1.
Wow.
Move on to the WCA America Finals.
The Alexstrasza coming in so clutch for Firebat, and despite a slight misplay with the Emperor Thorsan not throwing it into face, the 5 damage is not going to matter. And Firebat is going to throw the fireball, throws his hands up in the air. He knows. He's like, I just booked a trip to California and maybe even to China. So, of course, Firebat is going to be your winner of this second group on this Tuesday. He's going to join his teammate Amaz, and we'll be seeing more of them. Of course, we have 2 more players other than that that are going to be joining us for that LAN at the beginning of June to see who's going to be heading over to China. $12,000 on the line for that as well.
Yeah,
pretty good matches.
So far, Archon's been doing really well in this tournament. We had Amaz qualify from day 1, Firebat qualify for day 2, and we're going to have an Archon player in each of the remaining groups. Zalay will be joining us tomorrow in Group C, and of course, Purple Jank will be joining us in Group D. So some players or some people have joked that it is the World Championship of Archon, and it might just be coming true. What will people say when 4 Archon players show up to the LAN finals in America?
Oh man, that would actually be pretty crazy, but they've played pretty well, both the Amaz and Firebat. I was really impressed with their deck choices and their play across the 2 days. We can take a little look at what we actually saw today. Firebat defeated Impact to move on to that finals. Tarei defeated Muzzy, and of course Firebat was your winner for the day.
Yeah, unfortunately, Team Magic Amy was not able to defeat Team Archon.
No. Team Magic Amy, of course. We saw Tarei's mom join him earlier, and he's like, Ma, I'm slinging cards. Leave me alone.
It's too important.
Too important. Hearthstone is definitely too important. But we can take a look at what we have for the rest of the week as well. We have 2 more days left of the North American qualifiers, the pro qualifiers. Tomorrow we will see Zalay, Hype to Dart, and Trump duke it out for that 3rd slot. And then, of course, on Thursday we'll see Purple Drank, Strife Crow, Chalky, and Raynette. Are there any players that are coming up in the next couple of days that you're particularly excited to see?
Well, I'm particularly excited to see Chalky versus Raynette. I know they're somewhat of like really good friends, I hear. That's at least what I hear, right?
Yeah,
people aren't lying to me, right?
No, they're not. They collaborate every single day, and they were last seen at the Hearthstone Legendary Series, the ESL LAN Finals, holding hands and skipping down the street at the end after Chalky took 2nd place. Raynette was right there to put a hand on his shoulder and console him after his loss.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Chalky, unfortunately, he's been not doing so well. He's, of course, gotten 2nd place in almost every tournament he's gotten in.
Yeah.
Kind of like from StarCraft, in the con line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. 2nd place at ESL, 2nd place at Root Conquest Tournament, and then 2nd place at Kingwin over the weekend. So he'll be looking forward to possibly taking 1st place in his group at least.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to see. That match is going to be coming on Thursday, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And you can find all that information plus more. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, WCA_America, or you can use the hashtag WCA2015. You'll find more information about the Hearthstone North American Pro Qualifiers. You'll also find information about the World Cyber Arena Dota 2 tournaments, the World Cyber Arena Heroes of the Storm, as well as Crossfire tournaments. So all of that action is going to be coming in the coming 2 weeks. So make sure you stay up to date on Twitter with all that information. But that's going to do it for us here at the World Cyber Arena Qualifiers. From myself, from Monk, from everybody here, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow night.